Got a MacBook Pro A1126. I believe it was like 2007, 2008. The keyboard and mouse stopped working slowly over time until neither of them worked at all anymore. And so I found out online that it was basically this ribbon cable that fits in. It's got some chips mounted inside of here, and it basically ties the mouse, keyboard, and the rest of that to the main motherboard inside of it. You gotta be careful when doing this that you don't zap your MacBook. So what I do is I typically keep a wrist on it so that you're grounding. The tools you're gonna need is a 00 Phillips screwdriver and a T6 Torx, I think it's called Torx or Star, and that's to take off all these little screws. So I usually just take them all off and put them inside of one container because they're all different and they're easy enough to separate them out. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 here, and I only put a few back in just to hold it together for this demo. There's 4 on this side, 4 on the other side, 2 in the back, both sides here, and these 2 right here always get me. There's 2 little ones down inside of here. Then there is 4 longer screws that go in the back. And you can see they're much different than the rest of these little guys, so it's easy enough to keep them separate. And then the RAM cover plate, 3 in here. And this plate comes up. You want to be careful not to touch the RAM at all, just for static discharge. It is a sensitive electronics. Then you take your T6, and these are 2 more bolts. And now it should be free to open up. So flip it back over, pop it open. Underneath this, it should pop up a little bit, and then the back should come free. And you don't want to lift it up too high because you see the cable itself is connected underneath the bottom of this, and you don't want to bend these tabs in the back as you're lifting it up. So you kind of want to lift it straight up and then kind of tip it back. And then eventually you're going to take a flat screwdriver, keeping yourself grounded to the rest of the chassis. You're going to remove the old cable. Yeah, you'll see if you take a flat screwdriver, then you should be able to slip it underneath here. Careful to keep your wrist grounded against the chassis of the computer. You should be able to very gently lift this connector up. I'm not going to remove it because this is a new one I've already placed in it. And then you'll remove this tape here, Kapton tape, and then you'll remove this plastic plate here. You may need like an X-Acto or something to slip under here. Mine's already taken off once before, so it comes off easy enough. And you see here, these guys slip into these connectors. These have little tiny, this has a small clip on it that holds it in place, that you grab it here and flip it forward. I don't know if you can see that. This small clip on the end of it. That releases this cable. The same goes with this one here. It has a small brown clip that you'll flip this direction so that the cable will come free from it. Here's a shot of that connector. And then these, you want to carefully remove them. with a screw. What I typically do is have a fingernail on one side and then a screwdriver on the other side, and I kind of wiggle them back and forth until they're both all set free. And then I take the flat screwdriver, pry the sticky stuff up with it because the new cable will come with sticky stuff already on it. Reattach the new one in place, slip the cables in, make sure you lock it seated in nicely, and then you lock the locking mechanism that's there, the little brown one, or the black one in this case. And then this guy goes back on. This is just pretty much a sticky surface that holds it in place. And make sure that's seated nicely. And then as you close it back up, what I typically do is hold it straight up and put it straight down on there. And make sure it's seated nicely and evenly on all corners. And once you get this seated down nicely, I set these 4 screws on the side first to hold them in place. I'll hold this down. As you can see, it's a little bit warped, my keyboard, because I've opened it many times. Alright, so I set 4 on the other side, and then I close the laptop, I flip it over, and I start with these 4 important ones here, these long guys. And I also put these Torx bolts in there as well. And don't forget these guys. These are the ones that always get me, is the 2 inside of the battery case. It works best if you set your screw on the end of your screwdriver, put your finger on it to hold it in place, guide it in, careful not to touch your RAM on the way, and hopefully it will sit in the hole. Put your finger on the end of the screwdriver and then twist. And then it's time for the RAM cover. And these little guys are so small. I usually just stick them on there like that, and it magnetically holds them in place. I'm still left with 2 of them, so I'm guessing I forgot the back side. It's not super critical in which order you take these out and put them back in, but I like to get the keyboard lined up straight and get these 4 set before I go much further. So I usually just do the 4 on both sides and then these 4 before I set the rest of the screws. And that's it. Battery in place. Still have a little bit of charge on it. Even though this thing's old, it still keeps going. Still works. Got the mouse on here. Keyboard test. All the keyboards work again. Cap lock, everything looks good. So that seemed to fix it.